evening air at Il Giardino carried the faint warmth of a world that wanted to believe in calm, in second chances, in the quiet possibility that lives fractured by chaos could somehow be pieced back together. The restaurant glowed softly under low lighting, the hum of conversation blending with the subtle rhythm of clinking glasses and measured laughter. It was the kind of place where people came to find comfort in familiarity, to anchor themselves in something steady. But beneath that surface, tension had already begun to gather, invisible yet inevitable, waiting for the moment it would break through everything else. Deacon sat across from Taylor, his expression more vulnerable than he had allowed himself to appear in a long time. The decision to speak would have been building inside him did not come from impulse. It came from a slow, deliberate realization that silence was no longer sustainable, that what he felt could not remain unspoken without becoming something distorted, something heavier than it needed to be. He had spent so much of his life reacting to chaos, adapting to consequences, surviving in the aftermath of decisions that had never truly belonged to him. But this moment felt different. It felt like something he was choosing. "I don't want to keep running in circles," he said, his voice low but steady, each word carrying weight because it had been held back for so long. "Not with you." Taylor's gaze did not waver, but something in her posture shifted, a subtle tightening that reflected the complexity of what she was hearing. She had always approached Deacon with caution, not because she doubted his sincerity, but because she understood the instability that had shaped so much of his past. And yet, over time, something had changed. Trust had begun to form in quiet, incremental ways, not declared but built through moments of honesty, through choices that suggested growth rather than repetition. "You don't have to run," she replied carefully, her tone measured, her words chosen with intention. "But that doesn't mean you know where you're going." The distinction was not meant to discourage. It was meant to ground. Deacon leaned forward slightly, his expression softening in a way that made his vulnerability unmistakable. "I know what I feel," he said, "and I know it's real." The words settled between them, carrying a weight that neither of them could ignore. For Taylor, the moment was not simple. It was layered with memory, with caution, with the awareness that feelings alone were not enough to build something stable. The halls of Forrester Creations carried a different kind of silence that morning, one that did not come from emptiness, but from something heavier, something unresolved that lingered beneath the polished surfaces and carefully curated order. Brooke walked through that silence with a purpose that felt fragile even to her, as though the task she had set for herself, something so seemingly simple, so grounded in repair, was already beginning to unravel under the weight of everything it touched. She had told herself that she was there to help, to find something, anything, that could bridge the growing distance between RJ and Electra, to repair what had been broken in the aftermath of Ivy's exposure. The damage had spread quickly, not just through their relationship, but through the wider circle that connected them all, leaving behind tension that no one quite knew how to resolve. Brooke believed, perhaps out of habit, perhaps out of hope, that understanding could still be restored, that clarity could still lead to reconciliation. But even before she reached Ivy's office, something inside her resisted that belief. Because nothing about what had happened recently had been simple. Nothing had resolved cleanly. And beneath the surface of every explanation, there had always been something missing. Ivy's office stood exactly as it had been left, a space that still carried her presence even in her absence. The design sketches remained neatly arranged, the materials organized with the same meticulous care that defined her work. But there was a subtle shift in the energy of the room, something that suggested it had not been entirely untouched since everything had come to light. Brooke paused just inside the doorway, her gaze sweeping over the space, her mind already searching for something she could not yet define. She moved toward the desk slowly, her hands brushing lightly against the surface, as if the answers she was looking for might reveal themselves through touch alone. "Something doesn't add up," she murmured to herself, the words slipping out without intention. She began opening drawers, not with urgency, but with quiet focus, scanning through documents, sketches, notes, anything that might offer insight into what had really been happening beneath the surface. At first, everything appeared normal. Too normal. The kind of normal that felt curated rather than authentic. And then her hand caught on something. The drawer did not close smoothly. There was resistance, a subtle obstruction that interrupted the clean motion she expected. She frowned slightly, her attention sharpening as she pulled it open again, this time more carefully, her fingers tracing along the back edge until they brushed against something unexpected. A phone. Old. Dust-covered.